And also, President Obama kicking off a four-nation tour of Asia. Speculation growing over increased activity at a North Korea nuclear plant. We'll have more right after this break. Right, as the trip progresses, in a little more than 24 hours, President Obama will arrive on the Korean Peninsula. He's due to meet with South Korean President Park Geun-hye. Security is going to be high on their agenda. You know what the troubles are. U.S. officials say right now they're keeping a close eye on what seems to be increased activity at North Korea's main nuclear test site. Seoul suspects Pyongyang might be getting ready for an underground nuclear test, potentially timed to coincide with Mr. Obama's visit. Let's talk some more about this. Joining us, Claudia Rosett from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, a well-known journalist. Claudia, great to have you with us. What do you think the odds are that North Korea would be so bold as to conduct a nuclear test while President Obama was on the peninsula?
It's North Korea, Jim. We just don't know. We do know that they've said that they're planning to conduct a test, in fact, a new form of test. A lot of speculation about what form. But would they? I would not rule it out.
When we look at North Korea and the threat that it poses, we have had years of six-party talks. We have tried everything in the book. We have they've agreed to give up their nuclear program. Why has it always spun out of control, gone south?
Well, the nuclear program is core to the North Korean regime. It has been for a long time. And basically, Jim, they're not going to give it up unless, unless the regime itself is really on the way out. The problem has been North Korea uses talks and then the time between the talks to game in any way what advantages they can. Talks have failed repeatedly, over the course of decades at this point. And the problem is that it's a game of chicken. And the U.S. and its allies are worried about the risk of provoking North Korea, which has shown itself willing to do some truly terrible and strange things, and yet has a certain sanity to its calculations here. North Korea's government has stayed in power, in part because of that nuclear program. It's the thing that they're not going to give up. That's the problem here.
In your view, what is the real risk of that nuclear program?
It's huge. One of the problems is North Korea is working on long-range missiles that would allow it to target, say, the United States. Now, it's not there yet, but it successfully put a satellite in orbit in December of 2012. That's the technology for an ICBM. So where might it drop these things if it wants to? The further danger is that North Korea has collaborated for a long time with terror-sponsoring states, Syria and Iran, development that would be shared with Iran, or might even be an Iranian warhead. We just don't know. But we do know there's very close cooperation. North Korea has been selling weapons and missile and nuclear technology into the Middle East for more than, since the 90s, since the 80s,
and Claudia,
in case of missiles.
Let's lay it on the line here, because some have told me that the real threat here is that North Korea needs the cash and it would sell anything to anyone for the right price, for the hard currency. It's not only America's enemies, the West's enemies it sells to. It sells rockets to Pakistan. Already has a nuclear capability. It shares technology, as you say, on missiles and everything else with Iran. Is there evidence that they're working together, say Iran and North Korea, on the nuclear technology?
It's interesting. There's a Congressional Research Service report out on this today, which says that according to unclassified sources, there's no evidence of that. However, that begs the question of what's in the classified sources. And there have been news accounts that they are cooperating, that they work quite closely together. If you trace these back, they usually go to unnamed intelligence officials. You can't actually nail down where did this come from. So it remains unknown. It's actually something that the U.S. government by now ought to be willing to share with the public. What do we actually know about this? Surely it's possible to say that in general terms. without compromising intelligence sources, because it's a very major threat. What we're looking at here, the overall picture is North Korea is about to conduct its 4th nuclear test. They've told us, and we're watching and waiting, as we did with the previous one. The first one was in 2006. There was another in 2009, another in 2013. If they conduct this 4th test, it will be the 3rd since President Obama took office. That's becoming a very, very disturbing trend, and it tells every other country on the planet that might aspire to nuclear weapons that if you just play hardball, you'll be allowed to get them. That we are not doing anything that stops this. It's a very tough question how we do, but for this to continue is very dangerous.
Claudia Rosett, that's going to be one of the topics, I would hope, when President Park and President Obama sit down in Seoul in the coming 48 hours. Claudia Rosett of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, I want to thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Tim.